The secret that kept my sister alive. When our mother died suddenly, it felt like the ground had been ripped from under us. I was 15, my sister only 12, and our father had been gone for years, more of a shadow than a parent. With nowhere else to go, we were sent to live with our grandmother in her old wooden house at the edge of town. At first, I thought maybe it would be a refuge. She cooked from scratch, kept the house spotless, and seemed determined to take care of us. But it didn't take long for us to discover the rules. Not ordinary house rules, no running in the halls, no staying out late. These were rules about life and death. Grandmother didn't believe in medicine. She didn't just distrust it, she believed it was evil. Within hours of our arrival, she gathered every pill bottle, every ointment, even toothpaste with fluoride, and threw them into a trash bag. God is the only healer you need, she declared. Doctors peddle poison. I wanted to argue, but when she found my sister's inhaler and dropped it into the bag without hesitation, my blood turned cold. My sister had been hospitalized before. Without medication, her asthma wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. But grandmother's eyes burned with conviction. To her, illness wasn't a medical issue, it was a spiritual test. The first time my sister wheezed at night, grandmother rubbed her chest with oils and whispered prayers over her until she coughed herself into exhaustion. When the attacks came more often, grandmother forced her to drink bitter teas, watching like a guard to make sure every drop was swallowed. My sister tried to believe it was helping. I knew better. During unpacking, I found one last emergency inhaler wedged in a forgotten box. I hid it by slicing a hole in my mattress and slipping it inside. Whenever the wheezing grew too violent, I would sneak into my sister's room at night, give her a quick puff and retreat before grandmother noticed. My sister believed the oils were finally working. I let her believe it, terrified she might accidentally say something and expose our secret. We survived this way, quietly, until something worse struck. One winter, my sister developed a fever. At first, grandmother called it a purge, the body burning out impurities. But when the fever climbed past 103, when her throat swelled with white patches and she could barely swallow water, I recognized it for what it was. I had seen classmates go through it the week before. Strep. A simple round of antibiotics could cure it. Without them, it could be deadly. Grandmother had other plans. She wrapped onion slices in socks, made her gargle salt water, and insisted that prayer was stronger than any pill. Days passed, and my sister only grew weaker. Her lips cracked from dehydration. She didn't even have the strength to cry. I stayed up at night researching on my phone, reading about rheumatic fever, kidney failure, and the risks of untreated infections. I couldn't just watch her fade. I had to do something. The next Sunday, when grandmother left for church, I stole a $20 bill from her purse, shoved it into my pocket, and walked 4 miles to the nearest urgent care. I claimed I had a sore throat, desperate to get a prescription without questions. The doctor barely glanced at me before scribbling on a pad. My hands shook as I filled the prescription. Terrified grandmother would somehow know. Back home, I crushed the pills into powder and stirred them into my sister's soup. I told her grandmother had a new blend of herbs. After 2 days, her fever broke. By the 4th, she was eating again. A week later, she was laughing in the kitchen, her cheeks no longer hollow. Grandmother called it a miracle, proof that faith had triumphed. I kept my mouth shut, relieved we'd survived. But secrets don't stay buried forever. While searching my backpack for the missing 20, grandmother found the pill bottle. She stormed into the room, holding it as though it dripped with venom. "You poisoned your sister," she hissed. "You brought Satan's chemicals into my home." My sister froze in the hallway, overhearing every word. She was alive, healthy, standing tall for the first time in weeks. But grandmother's fury drowned out any evidence. She grabbed the phone and began dialing social services, declaring she would have me taken away. Panic surged through me. I pulled my sister into our room, whispering for her to pack. But before we could even think about running, flashing lights appeared. Outside, sirens, 2 police cars, and an ambulance screeched to a stop in front of the house. Grandmother rushed to meet them, spitting accusations that I had been drugging my sister, that I was endangering her soul. The officers separated us. One led my sister into the kitchen. Another sat me on the couch and demanded the truth. I told him everything, about the discarded inhalers, the teas, the hidden inhaler in my mattress, the infection that nearly killed her, the pills in her soup. Before he could respond, a sharp wheeze echoed from the kitchen. My sister was having an asthma attack, triggered by the stress. The paramedics demanded an inhaler. Grandmother refused, declaring that prayer would suffice. I shouted the truth. There was one hidden in my mattress. Within minutes, they had it in her hands. Her breathing steadied. The paramedic shook his head and said flatly, "This child needs daily medication. She's not safe without it." That was the turning point. A social worker arrived soon after. She was calm but relentless, asking careful questions and documenting everything. Grandmother's shelves of herbs, the religious pamphlets, the discarded medication bottles. When she turned to grandmother, her voice didn't waver. "I'm removing these children from this home. Effective immediately," grandmother erupted, quoting scripture, crying persecution, calling me a traitor. But my sister clung to me as we packed. That night, we were driven to a shelter. For the first time in months, my sister used her inhaler openly, no longer hiding in the dark. I cried watching her breathe easily, realizing how close I'd come to losing her. The days that followed were a blur of forms, check-ins, and court dates. Our father was contacted, but he wanted nothing to do with us. That strangely was a relief. We had already been abandoned once. We didn't need it again. Slowly, life reshaped itself. My sister was enrolled in school, given a new asthma action plan, and taught how to manage her own triggers. For the first time, she felt control over her own body. I started therapy, where I admitted how scared I had been, how I had stolen and lied, not because I wanted to break rules, but because breaking them was the only way to keep her alive. Eventually, we were placed in a foster home. The woman who took us in was experienced, steady, and practical. She had raised other children with asthma. The first night, she pointed to a cabinet full of basic medicines, bandages, pain relievers, allergy pills, and said, "No one here has to hide to feel better." My sister placed her inhaler on the nightstand out in the open. That small act felt revolutionary. Months passed. We adjusted to routines, school, chores, therapy, even hobbies. My sister began painting, bright swirls of color that had nothing to do with sickness or fear. I threw myself into schoolwork, driven by a new purpose. I wanted to learn medicine, not to replace doctors, but to understand, to never feel that helpless again. Grandmother fought us in court, claiming her faith was being trampled. But when my sister testified, voice trembling but firm, saying she would not return if it meant living without her inhaler, the judge ruled we would stay in foster care. Life with our foster guardian became something we had nearly forgotten. Normal. We laughed at dinner. We slept without fear. When asthma attacks came, they were handled calmly with medication and care. No drama, no prayers shouted into the dark, just quiet competence. Over time, even grandmother changed. Through therapy and classes, she began to soften. On supervised visits, she didn't try to bless inhalers or pour oils down my sister's throat. She simply asked about school, even smiled at her paintings. She once whispered that maybe God worked through doctors after all. The day adoption papers were signed, my sister cried tears of joy. She had a home, a family, and safety. I signed too, hands shaking, overwhelmed by the thought that we were finally free. Looking back, I realize everything hinged on that single stolen $20 bill. It was reckless. It was desperate, but it saved us. It gave my sister her future back, and it gave me mine. We had lived in shadows, hiding medicine under mattresses, whispering lies to survive. But breaking the rules, breaking grandmother's doctrine, gave us life, and because of that, my sister now breathes easily, paints freely, and dreams without fear. As for me, I carry the memory of those nights like a scar, but also like a promise, that I'll never let anyone I love gasp for air in silence again.